I was working on my map, A Fox's Life 2, when something quite funny hit me. This map is a Find the Button map. Of course, A Fox's Life 2 is much more than running around finding buttons to push to progress. However, when you boil down its gameplay, you are just a fox collecting or finding objects. That was the main inspiration for this video. Common map genres and how to make them better. The first genre we're going to look at is Find the Button. The main problem with Find the Button is that it's often not very engaging. You turn your brain off, walk around until you see a button, and then press it. If you abstract away the idea that the main goal is to search for an item or block, you can create much more unique circumstances. If you imagine a Find the Button map as a Minecraft build, it would be a 2D wall. But by combining other genres with it, you can actually turn that 2D wall into a full 3D build. Like in the outset of this video, A Fox's Life dumbed down is a Find the Button map. However, A Fox's Life adds a lot of depth by making some collectibles obtained by parkour, some by puzzles, and some through NPCs. I'm not saying make your simple Find the Button map into an expansive open world adventure, but I will say that just trickling other aspects of gameplay can do heaps to make it more enjoyable. Next, we'll look at parkour. There are a lot of mistakes to make when creating a parkour map. But first, you really need an idea of what style of parkour you want. Are you trying to make jumps that make you get into a flow and seamlessly jump a marathon? Or are you making a short but intense challenge that parkour experts can master? I would recommend staying away from parkour that is very difficult and long, since it will scare away casual players. Keep your playstyle goal in mind the entire time you make it. If the parkour is meant to be completed in one go, as a map maker, you are required to complete it in one go yourself. No skipping. Now, usually a great appeal about parkour is the scenery that goes alongside it, so builds are really quite important. Maybe try something more interesting, especially more interesting than sticking to one biome per level. Jumps don't have to be all just vanilla either. Add your own mechanics, and what's great about parkour is that you can build a development kit and constantly use just a small handful of unique jump mechanics. Now we'll look at PvE. PvE can be relatively simple to set up, but hard to balance difficulty and the dopamine rush of upgrading your gear. Enemy design is the most important part of PvE maps. What I've generally found is that usually many weak enemies is more fun than fighting just a small amount of tanky enemies. We are fighting enemies, not playing cookie clicker after all. On the topic of enemies, be sure to combine a mix to throw off a dominant playstyle. For example, if your map has both melee and ranged combat, have a slower but dangerous enemy that encourages the use of your ranged weapons, but also have a fast and small swarming enemy that discourages only using the ranged weapon. In terms of gear, change things up. Diamond armor is so 2010. Why not create a set of armor and weapons that make you think about PvE completely differently? For example, how about this ring from Neon Deautomation? Fourth, how about PvP? PvP is one of the most common map genres due to how simple and really quite fun it can be. Keep in mind PvP stands for player versus player, meaning any map where players work against each other, combat or not, is technically PvP. In terms of combat PvP, I would offer the same advice from earlier regarding adding other genres into the mix. Using survival mode as a way to add a bit of luck and different types of skill can make PvP more interesting. Not only do you have the collecting of resources, but also the constructing of fortifications to add that same depth of gameplay. In terms of other types of player versus player maps, Adding luck can help make the game still enjoyable for everyone. Usually one player will be the best at a certain task, but adding luck can level the playing field. Even better is adding a Mario Kart type of mechanic where those in last get bonuses and those in first get debuffs. That way, if you have a handful of players, things can still be quite interesting from round to round. Now, you can ignore that last piece of advice, especially if you're going for a solely competitive game, where luck would kind of muddle in that. Next to last, we have puzzle maps. I'll keep my suggestions for puzzle maps quite simple, and that boils down to testing. Unlike most genres, puzzle maps can have the terrible problem of the player getting stuck. To fix this, let's take a note from the best puzzle games ever created, Portal and Portal 2. These had a tremendous amount of player testing, and this helped them to set the puzzles in a certain order so that they built on the previous puzzle without the players ever feeling lost. Finding the perfect balance between difficulty and progression is not easy, so you will need lots of feedback. Now finally, let's consider adventure maps. A common problem I find in adventure maps is that you don't feel very adventurous, or you feel like your actions have little substantial value. Combating this involves two steps: respecting the player and creating a dynamic world. What do I mean by respecting the player? Well, this means several things. First of all, respect the player's time. Don't have a quest where you run from point A to point B that is 1,000 blocks with nothing between the two. Another way you can respect the player is by giving them more than just the quest. Tell a story, tell a joke. Do something more than telling the player what to do. If they just wanted to be told what to do, they would probably call their mom more often. Creating a dynamic world isn't a must, but it really makes things feel alive. Have animals moving around, have barrels that explode, make things change with the weather and so on. Even if you don't do much, just a handful of details here and there won't go unnoticed by the player. These were just a handful of tips I've picked up over my years of map making. If you've picked up tips, share them in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.